professeur en sciences comptables à l'Université du Québec à Chicoutimi. FCPA, FCA.
Bonjour, Annie Poudrier, CPA-CMA. Je suis contrôleur à l'administration portuaire du Saguenay.
Bonjour, Mélanie Vincelette, CPA auditrice CA. Je suis chez Mallette en certification.
Bonjour, Virginie Vachon, CPA auditrice CA. Je suis chez Mallette également, là, en directrice en certification.
So when I say the words mental illness, there are a lot of different things that come to mind. But there's one very important thing that we want associated to that word, and it's support. Because anybody and everybody can be affected by mental health in some way, shape, or form, be it through friends or through family. And today, we're here to give this company the momentum it needs so that it can truly be the foundational pillar of support for mental illness for years and years to come. So we're going to take you away on our mandate, Ms. Phillips, but before that, I forgot to introduce ourselves. I'm here with my colleagues Kevin, Marco, and myself, Mazri, and we're going to start by maintaining for momentum a break-even point for the next 5 years while staying true to our core values, because those are very important to us. We're going to do this over the set of 3 questions, 3 key considerations we're going to look at. From an operational standpoint, how will we improve operational efficiency? From a human resources standpoint, who do we hire as the assistant manager? And then from a financial standpoint, how can that $50,000 loss in the grant be recovered? So right off the bat, I'm going to start by recommending something. And this is to implement a fundraising gala in the next 9 months with a partnership, in a partnership with a major institution. And this is because we want to create an experience. And we're going to go over this in a lot more detail throughout this presentation, where Marco is now going to take away the operational standpoint.
Thank you very much, Matthew. So Ms. Phillips, board directors, the first issue that we're going to tackle today is the cash flow. You asked us to really analyze our future cash flow for the next 5 years. And when taking into consideration the loss of $50,000 in the grant, the inefficiencies in sales reporting, which decreased our revenues by $6,000 approximately, and the increase in the cost of livings by approximately 1.5% for wages and materials year over year for the next 5 years, what we see is an immediate cash loss or outflow, a negative outflow of $73,000 in the very next year, that is 2018. And we see this progressively getting larger until it reaches a total sum of $87,000 per year in 2022, which is in 5 years from now. And when we saw this, we asked ourselves, how are we going to go about collecting these funds? Because the services that Momentum provides to the community are critical. So these are our target amounts year over year. The very first thing we took a look at was the results from the fundraising, specifically the sales in keychains, bracelets, and t-shirts. In 2016, this was a very profitable project, or a profitable project with total revenues of $37,000. This decreased to approximately $30,500 in 2017. So how did we lose $6,500? We broke this down into 2 specific components: changes in selling price and changes in quantities sold. And from the analysis here, you can see that there are very minimal changes in the selling price, which to us is a clear indicator that it is not price the cause, but it is absolutely the changes in quantity. And from speaking with management and volunteers, what we found out is the reason for the changes in quantity was associated with volunteers not tracking the sales properly. And our recommendation following this is going to be to improve the sales tracking. And specifically, what we're going to, the big takeaway here is we're going to introduce the square system. I'll get to this in just 1 second because I do want to analyze a few other components, but the square system is really going to solve this issue with real-time inventory analysis. But before I go deeper into the square system, we do want to implement other controls, operationally speaking, to improve the volunteer system. Volunteers come in on the day and are given information the day of. Now, this is not as efficient as having volunteers coming in for weekly meetings for the month that precedes this. So 4 meetings, 1 per week, in the month leading up into the event is really going to reduce any risk of volunteers not performing their actions correctly. The dissemination of information is extremely important to make sure that our sales are properly recorded. The second thing is segregation of duties. We want to make sure that volunteers get to rotate different positions and get to have different points of access with the customers. This is going to allow for volunteers who are better or who are more experienced to be able to teach or move around different positions. This leads into our second point, where senior volunteers, people with experience, who they care about what we do for the community, are going to be in more overseeing positions, where they're going to be able to provide information to junior volunteers and keep the program going in the future. We also want to implement regular spot checks, and this is going to be very simple. Some senior managers or people who work there, such as ourselves or managers, will be able to take a look any hour at what's going on and see if everything is being implemented correctly. So having these regular spot checks really ensures that people are following the guidelines that were given in the meetings. Now, Squarespace. I mentioned Squarespace is extremely important for us. And what this does is it removes any cash transactions or loss from cash that could be lost. Squarespace is Square System is a very easy tool that you put into a phone and scan a card, and essentially monies are going to be transacted immediately. This real-time transfer of funds through credit is going to have instant recordings in your system, and you can easily link it to the inventories that you have. So if you start off the day with 200 inventories and have 200 sales, then you know you'll be at 0 at the end of the day, and the transaction will be recorded instantaneously with the use of the card. So this type of regular or inventory system comes at no cost for a nonprofit organization. Ordinarily, this would have a 1% to 5% transaction fee, but because we are providing community services, it is absolutely free. There is no incremental cost, and we get to recover those $6,500 in lost sales, and possibly even have more sales as a result of this. So now that we've tackled the issue about the controls, let us talk about hiring an assistant manager. Now we know that operations are expanding, and we have plans with the Gala to expand even further. So given these new plans to expand with the Gala, also the consideration for acquiring a bookshop, with which Kevin will speak about very shortly, we need help. Help is absolutely needed here. And we essentially have 3 candidates who can fill this position. We have a young CPA, a director general, as well as a service worker who works in-house. But before we analyze these 3 people, what qualities are we looking for in our assistant general manager? We're looking for someone who has people skills, who knows our clientele, who can communicate properly with them, and also communicate with the people who work for our organization. This is extremely critical. We're also looking for someone who shares the organization's vision, someone who believes in the same values that Momentum believes in. And finally, we're looking for someone who has a clear understanding of the day-to-day operations. So when we considered these criteria, we analyzed our 3 candidates. We saw that young CPA had a lot of promise. Being a recent graduate, having sat on several board of directors, there's a lot of possibilities there. However, the big negative is the lack of community work experience and the lack of leadership in this type of environment. The school environment is very different, and the board of director environment is very different than the day-to-day operations of a volunteer group working with mental disabilities. So for this reason, we are excluding this candidate. When it comes to Director General, we see that they're very experienced and that this position would actually be a downgrade for them. And considering the fact that this would be a downgrade, we assume that they would want to be compensated either immediately or in the future. And considering that costs are something we're trying to limit, this is a negative factor for this candidate. Finally, we consider the service worker who currently works for Momentum. This person is dedicated to our community. They've been working with us from the ground up, and they share all our core values. They're also loved by the clientele and understand the daily operations. So the service worker really aligns with our 3 criteria, and for this reason, we believe that he or she is the best candidate for this position. And this is our recommendation moving forward to hire her as the assistant general manager. So I will now pass the floor to Kevin, who will talk about the acquisition project.
Thank you. So now that we've taken a look at this new bookshop acquisition project, we want to see why we're acquiring this new bookshop. The reasoning here is because we want to increase our self-financing autonomy and be able to service this bookshop without using a debt, but rather selling our current buildings. But beyond our goals, what we're looking to achieve here is to provide our community with the best opportunity and better access for them to reach their passions and be able to read. So let's take a look at a more quantitative analysis. Looking at the payment required, this new bookshop will require $208,000 in initial investments, and this includes moving expense. The proceeds from the current buildings will be allocated to this new bookshop, but also 20,000 of it will also be redirected to our debt. So, as a matter of fact, the down payment for this new bookshop will amount to $68,000. But will this project be profitable or will help our cause to maintain break-even over the next 5 years? So before we take a look about the net present values, we want to talk about assumptions and setting up this net present values. So our initial investment required amount to $48,000 because the $68,000 that we generate from our proceeds will also be allocated to our debts. The trade-off here is we're losing income rent revenue from our psychologist who was paying us $200 monthly. And also, by acquiring these new buildings, we're also allowed to have a tax shield deductible on the new buildings. We will be using a rate of 10% to allocate the new CCA. And our incremental profit, as per assessed by Ms. Phillips, will amount to $13,500 year over year, and will also increase by a 10% increase over the 5 next years. The discount rate used for this net present value will be 10%, and when we put all these assumptions together, we get a net present value of this project. Now, we understand this is very hard to see, so this is why we want to really emphasize on the next point, which is really the net present value. So over the five first years, we will be at the loss, cash outflow loss, and it will take us 8 years to break even. Now, we understand that our goal or mandate was to break even, have projects that would break even by 5 years. But we've seen that this project would bring the community together because of the location is closer to the center of the city. And also we'll see a profitable increase after the 5 years period. This, at the end of 10 years, we'll see a net present value of $10,400. And this is for this reason, that this new project, we believe, is profitable and should be considered to expand in. So, now coming back to alternatives, to see how can we maintain or break even over the next 5 years, we came up with 3 alternatives. The first one being the fundraising gala. The second one, searching for more grants and asking for government. And the third one, increasing our sales of paperback and selling of chains. However, we've seen that the third option, increasing our sales of paper, is not sustainable as the costs are increasingly higher, and searching for more grants would prove to be very difficult. So our best alternative here is fundraising gala, as we'll be also able to promote our community and be able to reach more funding over the years. So to repeat what we recommend, what we're here to do today, was to break even by 5 years, and we believe that by implementing a fundraising gala, we'll be able to break even over the 5 years and then see increased profit so that we can help our community and bring our population together. Now, Matthew will go over the implementation of this fundraising gala.
So, I'll start us off by just looking over briefly in terms of what the gala will entail. And one thing I'd really like to emphasize is that one of the gala's biggest selling points is the experience. Because a lot of the times just selling products doesn't have the same level of retention for a cause as an experience does. And that's where the gala has a lot of value added, not only for Momentum, but for the community as a whole. So we'll start us off in the first 3 months. So what steps can Momentum take in the first 3 months to sort of realize this objective? And the first thing to do is to find the ideal sponsors. We've ranked this in order of hierarchy and sort of value. So where do our values align? And I think a hospital is realistically the most accurate representation of our values in terms of supporting mental health and mental illness. So ideally, we would first seek out hospitals. If that doesn't work, financial institutions are also an option. From our personal experience, we're very aware that a lot of banking companies have senior positions who've supported these sort of initiatives. For example, cancer initiatives have been very heavily supported by different banks. So we can look into financial institutions. If that doesn't work out, we can also look into community sports clubs. There are lots of fundraising activities which involve sports teams and famous sports figures from that local city. So those are the ideal sponsors we look for. Afterwards, communication is super important. So how do we get these sponsors? And cold calling, emails, that's not the way. That's not the way because we have a very valuable and important cause, and this cause needs to be conveyed face to face. So personal selling is absolutely the best approach. Go in there, in person, we talk to them, we share our vision, and if they align, we can create a proper sponsorship contract. Last but not least, leveraging our passion, right? We love what we do, and like I said, support is super important to us. So why not leverage that and get these people on board? Now once that's done in the first 3 months, we can move on to the 3 to 6 months mark. So we have our sponsors, everything's set in stone, and now we can start implementing and executing. And in this time point, a team of 2 working part-time employees, 2 people working part-time for a period of 10 weeks is ideal. Based on personal experience, from my personal event planning experience, this is a very feasible amount of human resource to be allocated to an event such as this. So it can be done in 10 weeks without a problem. Last but not least, the steps that will be taken progressively is first and foremost scouting a venue. You want to find a location that's beautiful and represents your values effectively and properly. Of course, you need to get the proper quotes to figure out exactly how much it will cost. And then last but not least, use some negotiations that you made, and then booking the venue. And once you have the venue booked within that first 6 months gap, you can start releasing ticket sales. Release ticket sales, make an advertising effort, and really talk about the experience and the cause, because that's what people are there for, versus simply selling them a product, such as, let's say, keychains or bracelets. Once that's said and done, we'll move on to the 6 to 9 months mark. In the 6 to 9 months mark, we want this gala to be incredible. And the way that's going to be done is with an extra added value, which is auctions. If you go to, let's say, a really high level gala, there's a lot of times there's silent auctions and live auctions, and those work really, really well because the prizes are donated by sponsors. So their donations, they're given to us, and it adds a lot of value because it incentivizes people to come even more so to the gala. We can have a silent auction, a live auction, both together. Of course, we can use handmade bags in the auction to sort of showcase our impact, to showcase the activities that we do and how we support the community in bringing them in and allowing them to build paper bags together. So we can showcase that effort and really further increase our profile and show what we stand for, and then sell tickets and host the events at the 9 months mark. Within 9 months, this event can be planned and executed successfully. And last but not least, we can contact news outlets to promote the event as well. So moving on to the 9 to 12 months mark, once the gala is done, we can't just say, wash our hands off and say we move on. No, once the gala is done, there's a lot of post-gala effort that needs to be taken care of, such as sending thank you messages to all our sponsors because we need them to come back year after year. This needs to be a constant experience. People need to be reminded of this. And then we have our post-gala marketing efforts, such as our videos and our pictures, and then we reconcile these figures for bookkeeping. Because at the end of the day, the profits that are raised for the gala will be donated to our organization, where we can use these funds to support mental illness. So moving forward, what's the impact? So ideally, the revenues, just to give you an idea of how these revenues are being projected, is the ticket price is about $500. So in the first 2 years, we're expecting about an attendance of 200 people, and then that just progressively rises to about 250 to then 270. So ideally, this gala will grow year after year. The auction revenue will again, was estimated at $5,000. So this ties in with our goal of having that activity in the gala as well. And then our recovery of loss. We also need to factor in that based on the implementation of the Square system that Mark has suggested, we will be able to recover those losses from our sales at the fundraising activity. And we can equally keep hosting that fundraising activity. We recover that loss in addition of the gala's cash flows. All in all, the gala will cost us approximately $200 per head. That is a very reasonable price. I've taken that from personal experience, from planning events. And last but not least, we'll have our incremental profits, and you'll notice that progressively, year after year, once we hit the year 2020, we start seeing a cash positive. And then moving forward, that cash positive just further increases. And this accomplishes our goal. We've successfully broken even, and then at the end of the day, that's been done in a 5-year time span, and we've stayed true to our core values because we started an experience that further supports mental illness. Thank you for your time. We're now open for the questions.
You know that the administrator, we have a lot of concern about the internal control. Do you think that hiring a service worker as a managing director could be efficiency for the administrator and the internal control?
Yes, we do believe that having the service worker will add to the effectiveness of the internal controls. Because she has been working with people in the organization, she is familiar with all the personalities in the corporation. She will also work closely with Ms. Phillips, and she'll be able to learn directly from Ms. Phillips. The transition period will take place over a period of 5 years, and during that time, she will be able to evolve into the position, or evolve into the character she needs to be for the position.
I just want to make sure I understood well. Do you propose to stop the homemade bag production? No?
We propose to continue with the project. We understand that some of the incremental costs outweigh the incremental revenues, but this is one of the key auction items at the gala that we propose. And this is going to showcase how we can positively impact the community or the people with mental illness in the community. And given this as a specific example, this will drive our overall image and marketing expenditures.
Okay.
And we saw that in your financial outlook for the forecasting of the next 5 years, that we are losing about 75K per year. And with your fundraising activity, the gala, we only can gain 8,000 a year. So what do you recommend to do for the difference, the 70K difference between the outcome of the financial gala and the loss that we do have?
Are you referring to
Yeah.
these two differences?
Yes, the net cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
We are losing actually 75K a year, and then we only gain 30,000K in 2009 and 3 in 2020. That's your net cash flow. So what can we do to increase our net profit?
In the short term, you mean? So
Yeah,
the
in short term, yeah.
activities? So in the short-term activities, there are different things that can be done to raise profits. So one of the most important things would be, let's say, costs.
Mhm.
So cutting down costs, this would have to be an assessment of the fundraising activities. So upon more detailed information, we can see the overall cost of the activity. For now, we know the cost of the products, but not the fundraising activity as a whole. So for immediate costful impact on cash flows, we'd have to cut costs because raising revenues immediately is a bit difficult. Whereas over the span of the 9 months, when we host the gala, when we continue the gala, we build its reputation, then progressively over the years on a long-term basis, we increase our cash flows.
And what kind of costs would you cut?
For the fundraising activity?
No, for the current activity.
So the current fundraising activities, it's difficult to assess which cost to cut because we were only providing information upon the products that are sold at the activity. So we have to know where it's hosted, the logistical cost, is there a venue cost associated with it, is there a waiter's cost associated with it, there's all these different costs involved in an event. So there's significantly more than just 3 products. And based on that assessment, we can do a further analysis to tell you exactly where costs can be cut in the short term to improve cash flows.
Alternatively, another thing we can do is we can increase also our ticket sales. And we can see the difference in the first year is only $12,000. So we go from -73 to -12. If we increase sales by 20 heads or 20 people, we can recover those costs as well.
Good. Okay, and what kind of internal control do you recommend us to implement?
So internal control base-wise, because we've seen as we're some difficulty in tracking sales, what we're proposing is reconciling every month the sales proposal and see if it match, let's say, the bills.
Okay. Do you have further question?
Yes, you were talking about the square system. Will this require an initial investment for machines or?
No. So the initial investment for the machines, each machine costs about $10,
Okay.
$10 to $15. We've used it ourselves for an event, and as an NPO, you make a special application to Square, and Square can even waive the cost of the machines. So the cost of servicing is waived for sure. The cost of the machine, you can make an appeal to waive that as well. So that can be looked into, so that our initial investment becomes 0.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.